Do you want ideas for using up your 6x6 pattern paper quickly? Hi, I'm Jess from JessCrafts.com, and I'm here to help you make the most of your crafty supplies in time. So let's get making. Today I have 6x6 Slimline template number 10. So it takes one piece of 6x6 paper and makes 2 Slimline cards with no pattern paper scraps. My Slimline cards are 3.5 by 8.5 because I find that to be like the most efficient use of cutting them from 8.5 by 11 cardstock. Today I'm using the Paper Rose Winter Woods collection. I like it because they have a lot of like cut aparts and other elements you can cut out to decorate alongside the pattern paper. So they're double-sided. One side's kind of a traditional pattern paper. The other side might have some cut aparts on it. A few of them are just pattern paper on both sides, but I like that you can have embellishments right there in with your pattern paper. Paper Rose is also an Australian company, so they are available here in the US at scrapbook.com, but also if you are overseas, particularly in Australia, they might be easier for you to come by than some of the other American paper lines, so it's nice to be able to mix it up. Okay, so my sketch tells me to cut 1 1/4 by 6-inch strips. And I need 4 of those, and then I'll have 1 inch left, 1 by 6 inch, and I'll cut it in half to 1 by 3. I'm probably gonna make more than 2 cards today because I did pick out this additional pattern paper that has these cut aparts. So instead of adding some stamps or dies, I'm just gonna use those. And I'm like, well, if I'm here, I may as well make a few cards. So 1 1/4 by 6, and I don't have to measure the 6 because my paper is 6. That makes it pretty easy for me. I am measuring 1 1/4 from the end as opposed to each time bringing the paper to 1 1/4, just because I find that to be a bit faster. Now here on the end, I am bringing it to 1 1/4, and then this strip that I just cut off is that 1 inch strip, just because 1 1/4 is a little bit easier to measure because I have a little bit more room left to hold my paper down. And then I'll cut that to 1 by 3. Now, on my sketch, these 2 pieces are facing the same direction that they would be on the pattern paper. So if I had a directional pattern paper, they would be facing the way that they were. But then this chunk I am cutting off and then I'm turning it on its side. So you need a pattern paper that is either non-directional or like this one is, it is directional, but I wouldn't mind taking a strip and turning it on its side like a wood grain or something. Okay, so my non-directional pattern paper is gonna give me this basic configuration. As you see in the sketch, I'm gonna need to cut some mats to go with it. You could of course skip mats, but particularly because I am working with a pattern paper that has a white background, and I almost always use white card bases, although I could come to a craft card base for this to make it easier. I want to add the mats. I am going to use craft cardstock, and I'm going to cut a bunch of mats at one time because I am going to make 4 cards in all. Now my mats need to be 1/4 inch bigger. So to save myself some time, I'm going to cut this to 6 1/4. And then I'm just gonna cut off those 1 1/2 inch strips that I will need. And since I have this left over, I'll keep going and make a bunch of 1 1/2 inch strips. This piece that was a scrap, I'm gonna make sure I take advantage of it. And I'm going to make sure I cut those 1 1/4 by 3 1/4 inch strips out of it, just so that I'm getting a little bit more from it. So I basically multiplied 3 1/4 times 3 and got 9 3/4, and then I cut my 3 pieces off of that. So I'll have all those mats. Don't worry about these measurements because this is a free downloadable template at jesscrafts.com. You can just enter your email address and get the template. However, if you would prefer to not have to download all the templates one at a time, this is part of the 6x6 Paper Busting for Slimline Cards compilation that is on Jess Crafts Etsy shop. So you can find that at jesscrafts.com/shop. or search on Etsy, and then you'll see all the templates. Now these are all free on jesscrafts.com, but you have to keep entering your email. And what's another nice bonus about purchasing them is I don't have to put all of this information at the top because I can put it on like a cover page earlier. And that means that when you get these paid for templates, sometimes your templates and sketches are a little bit bigger and a little bit more clear to read. So now I have all of my mats cut, my pattern paper cut. I cut those like cut aparts apart, and I can pick a few of them that I think I'll want to add. Not a lot of them have sayings. You could stamp a sentiment onto them. It would have to be a relatively small sentiment, and I might do that in the future, but sometimes I kind of like to wait and see what I want to use the card for, because this could totally be a winter birthday card. It doesn't have to be just like a sort of generic winter card, but it's all up to you. And also, you don't have to put a sentiment on the front of a card. Like, you're probably gonna write something inside. The front of the card could just be pretty. I like to, when I'm working with something like this, just kind of put adhesive across a lot of them. This is one of the reasons that I do prefer my ATG to, say, liquid glue, because liquid glue, it would be dry by the time I went to stick all of these down. And if you're interested in the ATG, there is a coupon code to Tape Jungle where you can buy your refills for like bulk pricing. So you can check out for that. I'm not an affiliate with them. I just reached out and asked for a coupon code because they're my go-to source. People asked that, and I thought, why not try to, help you guys out in that way. Okay, so then I'm placing them all down. I'm just eyeballing it, make sure it looks like about 1/4 inch on each side. I don't worry too much about it being perfect. You also may have noticed I took one of the sheets that had the cut aparts. So one of them I cut apart into the little images, and then the other one I used for its pattern paper size. Because in the Paper Rose collection, you actually get 3 of each paper. So I got 3 sets of these cut aparts, and each page had 12, I think, on it. Maybe a little bit more than that, actually, because it was, there was quite a few. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to make enough cards that I would want to use them all as little cutout images. So what I'm going to do is just use the other side for the pattern paper, and that is again why I like it, because I have that variety. If it was single-sided, I wouldn't be able to make that choice. Once I taped down all my pattern paper, I simply followed the sketch, which told me how I want to assemble the cards. This one, I would just caution, it's a little bit tricky because you do want more space on the top and bottom than you do on the sides. So if you were to try to evenly space these two, you're gonna have a big gap at the bottom. It takes a little bit of thought to fix that up. But I have these little, images here. And just to give you some insight into how I make some of my decisions, this pattern paper is quite a bit busier than this pattern paper, even though they're both have a lot going on. But because this has more colors and this is a little bit more monochromatic and just softer in general, I wanted to pick a embellishment that had some white space, some calm, because it kind of draws your eye up into it. Also, I put my embellishment where all 3 pieces of paper overlap. You can see if over here I put it just kind of up here, it would just be well, why is this hanging out down at the bottom? They're not balancing each other. It just looks a little bit awkward. Now, I also did want to point out, with most of my sketches, you can usually just turn them the other way as well. It might not work with directional pattern paper, but I could mix it up and do something like this where I turn the entire card on its side. I don't like it quite as much with this small embellishment, but I just wanted to show you that option. Okay, and also, I'll show you briefly. Instead of putting foam tape behind things to prop them up, this is just literally a clothing tag that I taped together. But I also will use my scraps of cardstock and just any you use a cereal box. I tend to hesitate with using food-based items because I donate my cards, and I just wouldn't want there to be anything weird about that. I wouldn't want to attract any animals to it or that kind of thing. So I do tend to use more packaging that's just not food related. Anyway, I am probably going to donate these cards. Of course, I could save them and use them, and then maybe I'd add a sentiment later, but I don't think they really need one. They're quite pretty. I think they would be great for an organization that serves seniors, and so I would finish off the inside of the card with one of my card inserts. So these are available for purchase at my Etsy shop, but you could also use the winter jokes. So if you were working on some winter cards, it's a good time, like starting in the summer, to work on those cards you want to donate that are winter or like winter holiday, Christmas, Hanukkah, etc. themed. So I also have some jokes. Now I will say both the jokes and the card inserts are a little bit more geared towards A2 and larger cards, and because these slimline cards are smaller, you might have to kind of trim things up a little bit. I sort of just kind of cut them to a easy standard size, but I will still be able to get my jokes, which are free. You don't even have to enter your email address at jesscrafts.com. And then my card inserts, not all of them, because they're made to fit A2 size cards, would fit inside the slimline card, but there were a couple, and since I'm going to give these cards to seniors, I'm not going to choose like the coloring page, but that tic-tac-toe could be fun. Play it with a friend. There are some, like this one here at the end where you have to like take the sentiment and make as many new words as you can. I think that game, like anyone could play it, or the poem or something. There's a word search, that kind of thing. Could be well suited, and you can trim them down a little bit. Not all of them will fit inside the card. If you found this video helpful, here's another video for more ideas for enjoying your crafty time and supplies. Let me know you like this video with a share to your crafty community. Subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss the next template or tutorial, and check the video description for product links. See you in the next video.